A morning fog clung to Bayview Harbor, soft and pale, the kind that made the cranes hum louder against the quiet. Sam Whitaker took his time crossing the wooden planks, his boots pressing gentle rhythms into the damp boards. The old Navy cap on his head carried a faded Navy cap patch, its threads worn like memories too humble to brag about. He kept his shoulders steady, the way the service had taught him, even long after the uniform was gone. Travis spotted him first. The young man's laugh cracked through the fog like a thrown pebble on still water. "Look at him," Dockworkers laughed at his faded Navy cap patch again. A couple of the others joined in nudging each other, finding more amusement in the morning chill than the work ahead. Their voices bounced off the steel hulls tied along the pier. Sam didn't slow. He didn't speed up either. He simply carried on as if the wind itself had whispered the joke instead of the men beside him. The harbor had been louder than this during storms. A few laughs could not shake him. Marla came walking down the dock with clipped steps, her clipboard bumping lightly against her jacket. "We need the dock clear, Sam. Please step aside." Her tone wasn't cruel, just hurried, like she was trying to pull a stubborn knot loose. Sam gave a soft nod. "Sure thing, Marla." He shifted to the side, letting the crew move in with their ropes and equipment. No resentment crossed his face. If anything, it looked like he'd been expecting it. A small pair of sneakers scuffed along the planks behind him. Eli Morales had been running an errand for his father, but now he stood still, watching Sam, the way children watch the ocean, quiet, curious, trying to understand something older than they were. The boy's gaze flicked from Sam's calm posture to the men who had laughed, then back again. A breeze swept in from the water, lifting the edge of Sam's cap. Light caught the faded patch, revealing its gold thread for just a breath. The moment was brief, but enough for Eli to see something the dockworkers had missed. Sam continued down the pier, hands folded behind his back, taking in the morning as if it belonged to him and the harbor together. The fog shifted, the cranes groaned, and the gentle clang of ropes against metal filled the spaces the laughter left behind. But something in the boy's eyes stayed on him. Rumors had a way of drifting across Bayview Harbor faster than the tide. By mid-morning, they floated between the forklifts, across the stacks of crates, and through the break room door. "Sam's just a forgetful old-timer," someone muttered near the loading ramp. "Yeah, sweet guy, but slow." Another added, not unkindly but careless enough to sting. Sam heard pieces of it while checking the lines along Dock 3. He didn't correct anyone. He had learned long ago that explanations rarely changed the minds determined to rush past them. Still, when he noticed a young worker wrestling with a thick cable snarled around a cleat, he stepped forward. "Let me help you with that," Sam said. The kid looked relieved. "Thanks, sir. This thing's been fighting me all morning." Sam angled the cable, eased the tension, and worked it free with a couple of practiced twists. Before he could coil the rest, Marla appeared, her voice crisp. "Sam, please. We can handle it." He paused, offered a small smile. "Just lending a hand." "I know. But we're on schedule pressure today." She motioned gently for him to move back. Sam nodded and stepped away, careful not to make the young worker feel awkward. The kid whispered, "Appreciate it," but Marla was already down the pier, her clipboard tapping against her thigh. The break room smelled like coffee that had been on the burner an hour too long. Sam topped off a cup, dropped a couple of coins into the tip jar by habit, and settled at a small table near the window. A soft country tune buzzed from the radio mounted above the microwave, all steel guitar and warm twang. Eli slipped through the doorway a moment later. He carried a brown envelope for his father, but paused when he spotted Sam sitting alone. "Sir, why do they laugh at you?" the boy asked, lowering his voice as if the room itself might listen in. Sam stirred his coffee once, twice, then looked up at him. People laugh when they don't know the whole story, he said gently. Doesn't mean they're bad folks, just means they're in a hurry. Eli pulled out the chair across from him. I don't think it's fair. Fair doesn't always show up on time, Sam answered, the corner of his mouth lifting. But it usually gets here eventually. A horn sounded outside one of the barges, shifting into place. Eli sprang to his feet, and as he did, a lace on his sneaker whipped loose and slapped the floor. Sam leaned forward. Hold still. He knelt, fingers steady, and retied the knot with the same firm patience he used on ship lines decades ago. As he rose, the brim of his cap tilted just enough that the faded navy cap patch slipped into view, again subtle but clear in the slanted midday light. Eli's eyes stayed fixed on it, as if trying to read something the rest of the harbor hadn't noticed. Outside, a crane shuttered lights blinked along the pier, and a ripple of motion swept across the water. Then the harbor lights flickered again. A stiff breeze swept across Dock 3 the next morning, rattling the chain-link fences and making the gulls complain overhead. The big yellow crane sat half-turned on its tracks, frozen in place. A few dockworkers stood around it, hands on hips, their breath fogging in the cold air. Travis kicked the rail lightly with his boot. Stuck again, he muttered. Then, spotting Sam walking along the pier, he raised his voice. Hey, maybe his old navy cap patch knows the trick. A couple of the others chuckled, not as cruelly as before, but loud enough to carry. Sam didn't react. He just paused for half a heartbeat, glanced toward the crane, then continued on as if the morning had somewhere else that needed him more. By late afternoon, the harbor quieted. The crew had gone home, leaving only the creak of mooring ropes and the steady lap of the tide. Sam returned to Dock 3 alone. He knelt beside the rail, brushing aside a thin layer of grit. The track had warped slightly, catching the wheel just enough to stall it. He reached for a small pry bar he kept in his coat pocket, a simple tool older than most of the equipment on the pier. He worked patiently, easing debris out of the groove, realigning the metal, checking the wheels with the sort of calm precision someone might use while tuning an engine in the dim light of a ship's belly. When he finished, he tested the wheel with a gentle push. It rolled smoother than it had all week. No one saw him. That suited Sam just fine. The next morning, the crane slid along its track the moment the operator powered it on. The crew stared, surprised. Huh, Travis said, scratching the back of his head. Guess it fixed itself. Eli stood beside his father near the tool shed, but his eyes were on Sam, who was coiling a hose like nothing unusual had happened. The boy didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He understood more now than he had the day before. Later, Sam walked up the slope toward Bayview's small post office. The building's white paint was peeling at the corners, and the American flag out front snapped sharply in the wind. Inside, the heater rattled softly, and a long line stretched toward the counter. Sam took his place near the back, holding an envelope addressed in careful handwriting. Eli entered behind him with a stack of mail for his mother. Sending something important, the boy asked. Just an old friend, Sam said. Someone who likes to hear the harbor news. Eli nodded, glancing again at the cap on Sam's head. The faded navy cap patch caught a slant of afternoon light, making its gold thread shimmer faintly. The boy lingered on it, sensing a story bigger than the jokes thrown around the docks. As they stepped outside, the sky over Bayview darkened with a shift in the wind. Somewhere beyond the breakwater, a low rumble echoed across the water, distant but steady, like something heavy moving beneath the surface of the routine day. But a bigger problem was already rolling in from the bay. The afternoon sun hung low over Bayview Harbor, turning the water into a sheet of beaten copper. Preparations for the Veterans Day memorial sale were in full swing, but tension rippled through the dock like a tightening rope. The ceremonial vessel, usually steady as an old hymn, sat idle lights, dim its backup power system, stubbornly refusing to cooperate. A tangle of dockworkers surrounded the open panel near the stern. Tools clattered, someone cursed under his breath, and Marla paced in tight circles, tapping her clipboard so sharply it echoed off the hull. "We're losing time," she muttered. "If we can't get this running, we'll have to cancel the sail." Travis pushed his cap back. "We've tried everything. It's like the whole system decided to retire early." The group stepped back as Sam Whitaker approached. He had been helping coil lines nearby, quiet as ever, but now he came toward them with an unhurried, deliberate pace. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked. No one answered. Maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they were desperate. Either way, they parted without protest. Sam knelt by the panel, his hands steady, his eyes narrowing slightly as he traced each wire and connection. He tilted his head, listening almost as though the ship were speaking to him in a language long forgotten by everyone else. A thin beam of sunlight slipped between the cranes and struck the brim of his cap. The faded navy cap patch flared into full view, sharp gold, unmistakable. For the first time, the dockworkers really saw it. A memory moved across Travis's face as he recalled the way they had joked, laughed at his faded navy cap patch only days ago. Sam leaned in, adjusting the load regulator with a slow twist, then eased the secondary fuse into position. The faint hum of electricity returned, tentative at first, then gathering strength. Lights flickered along the deck, brightening with each passing second. A hush swept the dock so sudden it felt like the harbor itself inhaled. Footsteps approached along the pier, measured calm, carrying a weight the others instinctively recognized. Rear Admiral Thomas Keene came into view, his dress coat crisp despite the wind. Age had etched lines across his face, but his posture remained as straight as a mast. He stopped a few feet from Sam. Sam rose to his feet, brushing dust from his palms. The two men faced each other in a moment carved out of time. The Admiral stood silent before him, as if saluting without raising a hand. No words, no orders. Just recognition, deep, steady, unembellished. Across the dock, the dockworkers felt pinned by their own pride, unable to step forward or look away. Even Marla, normally quick with instructions, found her voice slipping away. Protocol pushed her into silence, holding her still. The only sound was the faint buzz of the restored power system and the soft rhythm of the tide kissing the pilings. Even that seemed muted, as though the bay itself understood the gravity of what had settled over the pier. Sam dipped his head once in acknowledgement, the gesture small but full of quiet history. The Admiral's gaze held steady, carrying something like gratitude, old, familiar, and long overdue. A breeze shifted across the harbor, cool and clean, brushing past the gathered crew. Then the harbor fell completely still. U.S. English. Pure narrative. Quiet hero style. Warm Americana tone. The morning after the repair felt different somehow, lighter, as if the harbor itself had unclenched a tight fist. The Veterans Day sun was bright, but gentle, brushing over the water in long silver streaks. Seagulls circled lazily above the pier, their calls echoing over the wooden planks that had carried so many feet, so many stories. Sam Whitaker walked with his usual measured pace along Dock 3, checking lines, straightening coils of rope, doing the quiet jobs no one assigned but everyone relied on. The crew was already at work, though less noisy than usual. Their glances drifted toward Sam more than once, but not in the way they had before. There was no laughter this time, only an awkward sort of awareness, as if each man were rehearsing what to say, but never finding the right moment. Marla approached first. Her boots clacked against the boards, each step betraying a hint of nerves she rarely showed. "Sam," she called, trying to align her tone with the morning calm. He turned toward her, hands resting loosely at his sides. "I owe you an apology," she said, "for snapping at you, for not listening, for, well, for not seeing what was right in front of me." Sam gave a slow nod. "You were under pressure. It happens. It's no excuse." Marla looked down briefly, then met his eyes again. "Thank you for saving the rehearsal yesterday." "Just lending a hand," he murmured. She almost smiled. "Seems like your hands know this place better than most of us." As she walked away, Travis and 2 dock workers lingered near the generator shed, shifting their weight from foot to foot, like boys waiting outside the principal's office. Eventually, Travis summoned enough courage and stepped forward. "Sam," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. He exhaled sharply. "We've been real foolish." Sam blinked. "About what? About you? About your service? About your patch?" Travis's voice dropped. "We had no right to laugh." Sam stayed quiet, letting the breeze fill the space between them. "Look," Travis continued, "I don't know much about the Navy. My family didn't serve. But yesterday when the Admiral showed up and just stood there in front of you," he shook his head. "I've never seen anything like that. Made me realize how wrong we were." The other 2 men nodded, muttering soft agreements. Sam's reply was gentle. "It's easy to judge what we don't understand." "We'd like to fix that," Travis said. "Starting now." Sam gave a small, steady nod. "All right." Eli arrived with his father a moment later, clutching a folded flyer for the Veterans Day sale. His father, a tall, quiet man with broad shoulders, extended a hand toward Sam. "My kid's been talking about you non-stop," he said. "Says you've been keeping this harbor together more than people realize." Sam shook his hand modestly. "Just do what I can." Eli tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad, tell him. Tell him what you said." His father chuckled. He said, "Mr. Whitaker's the kind of man who makes a place better without anyone noticing." He shrugged. Hard to argue. Sam looked down for a moment, touched by the sincerity. The breeze lifted the faded Navy cap patch again, and for once no one looked at it with amusement or confusion, only respect. A distant bell chimed from the church hall near the town square. A few voices drifted through the air, choir members rehearsing for the Veterans Day ceremony. Their harmony, soft and imperfect, floated gently across the harbor. It was a sound Sam had known since boyhood, and hearing it again brought a warm heaviness to his chest. He walked with Eli toward the edge of the pier, where the sunlight caught the ripples just right. The boy looked up at him with a seriousness beyond his years. "Mr. Whitaker," Eli asked quietly, "were you scared yesterday?" "When everyone was watching you," Sam thought for a beat. "No," he said softly, "but I felt the weight of it. Not because of what they were thinking, because of what the Admiral remembered." "What did he remember? A lot of hard years," Sam replied, "and a lot of good men." Eli nodded slowly, trying to carry the answer with both mind and heart. Behind them, more workers began to gather, not in a crowd, but in 2s and 3s, drifting closer, as if drawn by the same silent pull. Someone brought a thermos of coffee. Someone else set out folding stools. Conversations grew warmer, tones softened, and something unspoken began stitching the harbor together in a way that hadn't been there in years. Sam didn't command attention. He didn't seek it. Yet somehow the morning shaped itself around him, as though the community had collectively realized they had overlooked a cornerstone holding up the whole pier. A gull swooped low, its wings slicing the sunlight. The water shimmered. The air grew still for a long moment, as if waiting for something just beyond the horizon. But something deeper than apology was beginning to rise in Bayview Harbor. The sun rose clear over Bayview Harbor on Veterans Day, casting a soft gold across the water and warming the chill that usually lingered over the docks. Flags fluttered along the pier, their fabric snapping lightly in the breeze. Church bells from uptown chimed a slow, steady melody that drifted all the way to the shoreline, a reminder that the town was waking with purpose. Sam Whitaker stepped onto the ceremonial vessel with a careful, familiar stride. He wasn't dressed in uniform, he hadn't worn one in decades, but something in the way he carried himself made it clear he hadn't forgotten the weight of service. A few townspeople nodded to him as he passed, grateful smiles in their eyes. A member of the event committee guided Sam toward the cabin near the center deck. "We've prepared something inside for today's ceremony," she said quietly. When Sam entered, he stopped short. Mounted on the cabin wall, centered beneath a small spotlight, was a polished oak frame. Behind the glass rested his faded navy cap, patch restored, cleaned, and rethreaded, just enough to honor its years without erasing them. Its colors glowed richer than they ever had beneath the harbor sun. A small brass plate below read simply, "Samuel Whitaker, Machinist's Mate, United States Navy Service that quietly endures." Sam exhaled not quite a sigh, but something close. The years caught up to him all at once in the best possible way. Footsteps sounded behind him. Rear Admiral Thomas Keene stepped into the cabin, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression carrying the same steady gravity it had at the dock days earlier. He came to Sam's side, looking at the framed patch with a slow, reverent nod. "Some service stands silent," the Admiral said, voice low but warm, "just like the day I stood silent before you." Sam swallowed, searching for words that never fully formed. "You didn't have to do this," he managed. "It wasn't about what I had to do," the Admiral replied. "It was about what you carried all these years, without asking anything in return." Outside, a small crowd gathered along the rails as the boat prepared to ease away from the dock. The choir near the church hall began rehearsing again, and their harmonies floated out over the harbor like threads of memory. Eli appeared in the doorway, his eyes shining with pride. He walked straight to Sam and wrapped both arms around him in a tight, earnest hug. "You made this harbor better," Eli said, voice muffled against Sam's jacket. Sam rested a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "Just tried to keep things running," he said softly. Eli stepped back, and Sam looked once more at the framed patch. The sunlight filtering through the cabin window illuminated it in a warm halo, making it feel less like a relic and more like a promise one kept quietly, faithfully, without fanfare. When Sam returned to the deck, the breeze caught the flags overhead, sending them waving in slow arcs. The boat horn sounded deep and resonant. People along the pier lifted their hands in greeting as the vessel began its slow, dignified push into the bay. For a moment, the world felt entirely still, just Sam, the water, the sun, and the echo of a lifetime of service finally seen. The waves lapped gently against the hull, the church bells chimed once more, and the harbor embraced the day with a rare and peaceful clarity. If this story moved you, share it forward. The Veterans Day sunlight drifted softly over Bayview Harbor as Sam stood on the deck watching families gather along the pier, while the framed, faded Navy cap patch glowed warmly behind him. Still, there was something steady in the air when Admiral Keene joined his side, offering a quiet nod that carried the same unspoken respect he'd shown on the day he stood silent before him. Then the choir's voices rose from the church hall, drifting across the water like a lamp glowing in a winter window, simple, warm, and exactly the kind of kindness that travels farther than anyone expects. And as the boat eased into the bright open bay, Sam felt the harbor breathing with him, a gentle truth settling in place that some service never fades, and that the smallest quiet acts can keep a whole community standing. Kicker. 12 words. Share it forward. Someone needs this kind of quiet courage,